The bargain. The sun hung low over the Texas plains, casting an amber glow across the parched earth. Dust curled in the wind, whispering of unrest. Inside Fort Whitmore, the air was thick not with heat, but with tension, an uneasy quiet, as though the land itself was holding its breath. Clara Whitmore stood at the window of her father's office, watching the horizon. At 21, she carried herself with the grace of a woman twice her age, chin high, posture straight, yet her fingers trembled as they clutched the windowsill. The last rays of light caught her auburn hair, setting it aflame. Inside her chest, fear and fury battled in silence. The Comanche had encircled the fort 2 days ago. No arrows had flown, no shots fired, but the message was clear. Retaliation for the settlers' violation of sacred hunting lands would be swift unless an agreement was reached. Her father, Colonel Elias Whitmore, had done all he could to delay bloodshed. But this morning, Clara had overheard the final decision. The marriage is the only way. She had been hidden behind the door when the council declared it. A marriage treaty, her hand offered to the Comanche chief as a symbol of peace. Her life bartered like livestock. Clara had expected politics. She had not expected to become the solution. Now, the name echoed in her head like a drum, Takoda. She had never seen him, but stories of the Comanche chief colored him as a formidable man, cold-eyed, battle-scarred, a leader forged in fire. Not the sort of man a young woman dreamed of marrying, and certainly not while her heart still belonged to someone else. A soft knock broke her trance. Thomas Hale stepped in, removing his hat. A soldier by uniform, but not by spirit. His pale blue eyes met hers, glassy with disbelief. "You're going through with it." His voice cracked like dry twigs. Clara turned from the window. "I wasn't asked. It's already decided." He crossed the room in 2 strides, taking her hands in his. "We were going to leave, Clara, after the harvest. I have it all planned. My uncle will take us in. We could be happy." "I know," she whispered. "I know." But the weight of her father's voice, of a dozen men deciding her fate, still pressed on her spine. If she refused, the Comanche would attack. Hundreds could die. Her younger brother, her friends, Thomas himself. Her chest ached with a grief that hadn't happened yet. "I'll come for you," he said fiercely, pressing his forehead to hers. "One day, I swear it." She wanted to believe him, wanted to hold on to something familiar, something hers. But a slow, hollow numbness had already crept into her limbs. Like the ground crumbling beneath her feet, she was falling into a life she hadn't chosen. The next morning, she wore white. Not a wedding gown, but a linen dress that shimmered like snow in the dawnlight. She mounted the horse in silence, flanked by 2 guards and a translator. The ride beyond the fort walls felt like exile. Every hoofbeat carried her farther from the life she knew, and deeper into uncertainty. They met on the edge of the plains, Comanche riders in a half-circle, spears lowered, eyes sharp. In their center sat Takoda, unmoving atop a coal-black stallion. He wore no war paint, only a simple woven band around his head and a single feather swaying in the wind. He dismounted first. Clara did not expect kindness, but when their eyes met, she felt a strange stillness, as though the world had gone quiet around him. He looked not at her dress, nor at her trembling hands, but directly into her eyes. Not a predator's stare, something else. Measured, controlled. "I'm Takoda," he said calmly. His voice was lower than she'd imagined, smooth and sure. She nodded, unable to find her voice. The ceremony was brief. Words exchanged by men in 2 languages, hands touched, gifts presented, silver, beads, a white horse. Clara stood rigid, a doll in a performance she couldn't stop. When Takoda took her hand, his touch was firm, but not forceful. She didn't cry until nightfall. Inside the animal hide lodge that would now be her home, she sat on a mat of woven reeds, listening to the soft rustle of the camp outside. Takoda had left her alone, lighting a fire and vanishing into the night with a quiet promise. "You will not be touched unless you ask." She clutched the letter Thomas had written and wept without sound, her tears falling on the ink until the words blurred. She had done what was necessary, But she did not feel brave. Not yet. A strange world. Clara awoke to the scent of smoke and the distant hum of voices in a language she didn't understand. Thin streaks of morning light filtered through the seams of the lodge, illuminating the curved walls of animal hide and bone. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the weight of it all came crashing back. She was no longer Clara Whitmore of Fort Whitmore. She was the wife, by treaty, not by choice, of Chief Takoda of the Comanche. She sat up slowly, her back stiff from sleeping on the woven mat. Her white dress was wrinkled and dust-stained. The letter from Thomas lay folded beneath her blanket, its ink faded where her tears had smudged it. She didn't read it again. She already knew every word. Outside, the camp stirred to life with rhythm and grace. Children laughed as they chased each other between the lodges. Women tended fires, their hands working with practiced speed. Warriors polished their weapons or fed their horses, speaking in soft, clipped syllables. Life moved here with a kind of fluidity Clara had never seen in the fort, less rigid, more alive. Yet she remained still, a foreign object in a living world. The lodge flap opened. A young woman entered, perhaps a few years older than Clara. Her black hair was braided with turquoise beads, her gaze observant but not unkind. "I am Nita," she said, her English clear though accented. "Takoda's cousin. I help you." Clara managed a nod. "Thank you." Nita handed her a folded dress, simple, tan deerskin adorned with dyed stitching. "You wear this now." Clara hesitated. It felt like shedding the last piece of herself. But her white dress no longer belonged to this place, or her. She stepped behind the curtain Nita indicated and changed. The dress fit surprisingly well. It was light, soft against her skin, and smelled faintly of smoke and earth. When she emerged, Nita smiled faintly and adjusted the shoulder ties. "Better," she said. Later that day, Takoda arrived. He didn't enter the lodge but waited just outside. Clara stepped out, heart thudding. She hadn't seen him since the ceremony, and now, seeing him in daylight, he seemed somehow larger, his presence commanding, not from aggression but certainty. His dark eyes studied her not like a husband regarding a wife, but a leader evaluating a guest. "I will show you the land," he said. She followed him without a word. Warriors and women alike paused to watch them pass, but no one spoke. As they walked, Clara was struck by the contrast. The brutality she had expected was absent. The camp breathed with calm, despite her arrival, despite what she represented. Takoda led her to a small rise overlooking the river. Below, wild horses ran free across the plains, their hooves kicking up clouds of gold. "My people live with the land," he said, "not against it." Clara looked out across the wild beauty and felt her throat tighten. "Why did you agree to marry me?" Takoda was quiet for a moment. "To stop war, and to honor my father's wish." He believed blood is not the only way to earn peace. She turned toward him. "But do you want me here?" "I do not take what is unwilling," he said, his gaze steady. "But you are not a prisoner. You are now Comanche. You are my wife, but I will not command your heart." It was not the answer she had expected. She didn't know what she had hoped to hear. Hatred would have been easier. Indifference, too. But kindness. Kindness made her feel seen, and that frightened her more than anything. That night, she dined beside the fire with Nita and a few others. They shared roasted corn and strips of venison, offered without expectation. No one asked questions. No one judged her silence. They simply let her exist. When she returned to the lodge, Takoda had left again. A soft blanket had been placed beside the fire, fresh water in a clay bowl. No intrusion, no demands. She sat for a long time, staring at the flames. Her life had been taken from her, her plans, her love, her home. But he, in this strange world, no one had tried to break her. No one had forced her to smile or pretend. They had simply waited. Outside, a night bird called into the darkness. Clara closed her eyes and leaned into the warmth of the fire, unsure if she felt safer or more lost than ever before. Unspoken bonds. The days passed with the quiet rhythm of survival. Clara learned to rise with the sun, to braid her hair in the style of the women around her, to cook over an open flame without burning the meat. Each task was small, but each became a stone in the bridge between who she had been and who she was becoming. Still, her silence remained. Takoda never forced her into conversation. He greeted her each morning with a nod, sometimes with a soft word in his native tongue, then disappeared into the day's duties. He was a leader, always listening, always observing. Yet each evening, she would find some small gesture waiting: a carved comb for her hair, a strip of smoked fruit, a folded blanket closer to the fire. He was, in every way, gentle, and it unsettled her more than rage ever could have. One morning, Clara awoke with a pounding in her head and heat burning behind her eyes. The fever came swiftly, leaving her weak and disoriented. She couldn't rise from her mat. The lodge spun around her like a storm. She heard voices outside, muffled and urgent. Then she heard his. Takoda knelt beside her, his expression calm but tight around the mouth. Nita entered behind him, carrying a bowl of water and herbs. He brushed Clara's hair back, his fingers cool against her temple. "You are burning," he said. "I'm fine," she mumbled, trying to sit up. "You are not." He said it without judgment, as one might note the sky was blue. Nita placed the bowl beside her and began preparing a paste. Takoda remained by Clara's side, steadying her as she trembled. He spoke softly in Comanche, words she couldn't understand, but the tone soothed her. Protective, constant. For 3 days, he stayed near. He brought water, changed the cloths on her forehead, and whispered to her when the fever dreams came. Clara half imagined his voice threading through the darkness like a lifeline. When at last the fever broke, and she opened her eyes to clear light, she found him still there, dozing upright beside her mat, arms crossed, face relaxed in sleep. For the first time, she truly looked at him. He was not what she'd feared. His features were sharp but not cruel, his brow marked with faint scars that told stories she did not know. His strength was in his restraint, in his silence, in how he had carried her through illness without demanding her affection. She turned her head and wept, quiet, relieved tears. The next day, Clara ventured outside for the first time in nearly a week. The sunlight made her dizzy, but the breeze felt like freedom. She walked slowly along the edge of the camp, watching life go on around her. Children gathered wildflowers. 2 women sang as they washed hides in the river. It was a world that did not pause for her sorrow. She sat beneath a tree near the riverbank and drew her knees to her chest. Takoda appeared minutes later, as if summoned by thought. "You are stronger today," he observed. She nodded. "Thanks to you." He sat a few feet away, leaving space between them. "You endured much. The body heals before the heart." His words, simple and quiet, struck something in her. She looked down at her hands. "I didn't expect kindness, hey." "What did you expect?" "I don't know," she said. "Anger, indifference, hatred." He considered this. Hatred is a heavy thing to carry into a home. They sat in silence, the wind rustling the leaves above them. Then, without warning, a splash erupted from the river. A boy chased a girl through the shallows, both laughing so hard they nearly fell. Clara couldn't help it. She laughed too. A short, startled sound. Takoda turned his head toward her. A smile flickered at the corners of his mouth. "Your laughter is not unwelcome." She glanced at him. "I didn't mean to." But it came naturally. That night, as the camp settled into quiet and fires dimmed, Clara lay on her mat unable to sleep. She stared at the ceiling, listening to the low hum of distant drums and the occasional snort of a horse. Her mind drifted, not to the fort or even to Thomas, but to the river, to the warmth of sunlight on her skin, and the sound of Takoda's voice. Was this how betrayal began? Not with a kiss, but with a softening of the heart. She pressed the letter from Thomas to her chest, but the words no longer filled the void they once had. Something had shifted, subtly, quietly, a splinter of doubt, a thread of longing. Tomorrow would come, and with it, choices. For now, she closed her eyes and let the firelight flicker behind her lids, warm, unfamiliar, and strangely comforting. A heart divided. The first snowfall came without warning, fine flakes that danced in the air like whispers. Clara stood at the edge of the village, watching the white gather over the plains. Winter had arrived, and with it, a strange quietness. The wind no longer howled, it sighed. Her hands were tucked into a fur-lined cloak gifted by Nita. The warmth should have comforted her. But today, a letter had arrived, delivered by a military scout under flag of truce. Thomas was coming. He would arrive within the week, bearing formal permission from the fort's leadership to retrieve her. According to the letter, peace had been achieved regardless. The marriage was now diplomatically obsolete. She had read it twice, not for the words, but for the tone. Thomas had written with urgency, with the same passion he once poured into whispered vows. But beneath the ink, Clara sensed something sharper: ownership. The fire inside her lodge crackled low that evening. She didn't touch her food. Takoda, sitting across from her, said nothing. He watched, patient and still, the way he always did when her thoughts were far away. At last, he spoke. "You received a message." She met his gaze, startled. "Yes, from Thomas." A beat passed. "He comes for you." "Yes." Another silence, heavier this time. Takoda turned his eyes to the fire. "I will not stop you," he said. "If you wish to go, I will not make you stay." Clara swallowed the lump in her throat. "You never made me stay." "Not really." His eyes flicked to hers again. Dark, calm, unreadable. "I do not take prisoners," he said. "Not in war. Not in marriage." The fire popped. Sparks floated up like spirits into the shadows. She wanted to thank him. She wanted to explain. But the words tangled in her chest, wrapped around a feeling she hadn't yet dared name. So she stood and walked out, into the cold. 2 nights later, she found him alone by the river. Snow had dusted the rocks and gathered at the edges of the water. Takoda crouched near the bank, one hand submerged. He was silent, as always, his thoughts locked behind an expression she could never quite read. "I've never asked you about your past," she said, surprising even herself. He didn't look up. "Because you didn't want to know, or because you feared it?" She knelt beside him. "Maybe both." Takoda exhaled slowly. "I lost my first wife to fever. Like yours. She was brave. Like you." The admission hung in the air, raw and open. "She chose me," he added. "Not for peace. Not for politics. Only for love." Clara looked down at the water. "And me? Do you resent what I am?" He finally turned toward her, something ancient in his gaze. "You are not what they sent. You are what you became. And I do not resent truth." For a moment, nothing moved but the river. Clara reached out, not thinking, not planning, and brushed a flake of snow from his shoulder. Her fingers lingered. Takoda did not flinch. "I don't know what I feel," she confessed. "I still remember him. I still care." Takoda nodded. The heart holds many rooms. Some never close. And then he did something unexpected. He reached for her hand. Not to pull, not to lead, only to hold. Warmth bloomed from that small point of contact, slow and deliberate. For the first time since leaving the fort, Clara did not feel like something broken. She felt like something forming. When Thomas arrived days later, he rode alone, cloaked in military blues, his posture rigid. The village watched him warily, but Takoda stepped forward first and gestured peace. Clara emerged from her lodge, her breath catching at the sight of the man she once thought she'd marry. He looked thinner, angrier. "Clara," he said, dismounting, "thank God. Let's go. I've arranged everything." She didn't move. "I can't," she said quietly. Thomas blinked. "What?" She stepped closer, her voice steady but soft. "Things have changed. I have changed." His eyes widened. "Has done something to you. Brainwashed you. Locked you up." "No," she cut in. "He gave me freedom. You're the only one who's ever tried to take it." The words landed between them like thunder. Thomas took a step back, his jaw clenched. "So you're choosing this? This place?" "I'm choosing myself," Clara said. "And I choose to stay." Behind her, Takoda remained silent, unmoving. But Clara felt his presence like a stone against her back, solid, patient, waiting. Thomas said nothing more. He turned, mounted his horse, and rode away without looking back. That night, Clara sat by the fire again, letter in hand. But this time, she dropped it into the flames. Dakota did not speak. He simply passed her a cup of tea, sat beside her, and stared into the fire. Outside, snow fell. Inside, two hearts, one strangers, sat in the quiet of understanding. And for the first time, Clara felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be.